Hi everyone, welcome back to Alfred's Basic Adult Piano Course, Lesson Book Level 1. This video is Lesson 37, covering page 42 in our book, middle C position and thumbs on C. So, hand positions. You've learned the C position at the beginning of this book, which was right here on the piano. So that basically puts your fifth finger in the left hand on this C and your thumb in the right hand on middle C. And of course, the next four notes in each hand are covered by the next four fingers. The same thing for the G position, which you learned more recently. Basically, it's the same thing in both hands. It's just you shift up to G's. 5 on G in the left hand, thumb on G in the right hand, and then of course the next four notes covered by the next four fingers. But the middle C position is a little odd. And that's because it literally is middle C for both hands, meaning the thumb on middle C. Now, how is that even possible to put both thumbs, which are our biggest fingers, on one note? Well, you actually don't put them on the key at the same time. I mean, you can like I'm doing, but it won't work out very well when you play here in just a few moments. It depends which hand is playing middle C at the time. Now this hand position, and this goes for all hand positions that you've learned and will be learning, hand positions aren't really a thing later on in piano. It's sort of a beginning tool to just kind of organize where you're at and kind of learn notes. But eventually, hand positions don't even exist. There's the note and there's the finger. Now, things like chords exist where you can outline various notes and kind of get a hand position that outlines. But when you have a piece of music in the future, meaning probably by the time you graduate this book, less and less you're going to be saying, what hand position do I start on? But for now, we're still doing them because they're learning tools just to get us organized. But this one is very odd. And after experiencing this hand position myself, it's not so much about even a hand position. It's about getting used to playing when both hands are right up against each other. Now, that doesn't happen a whole lot in piano, but it can. And certainly there are times where it can get very complicated and the hands can overlap in some very complicated music. So it's really, in my opinion, about just getting used to the hands being very close together. So you may have this feeling of, in this position of your hands like running into each other, and you may be tempted to spread them apart. But this will help you, hopefully, overcome that. And of course, later on in the future, if you wish to play duets with someone on the same piano, playing four hands duet on one piano, you certainly have to get used to playing close to someone else's hand. So the middle C position, like I said, puts both thumbs on middle C. Where does that put the other fingers? Well, actually, if you look at the right hand by itself, it's no different than the C position. So in the C position, your thumb was on middle C, 2 on D, 3 on E, 4 on F, 5 on G. So really what's different here is the left hand. The left hand, your C position was down here. 5 was on this C, but now you're going to take your thumb and move it to middle C. So if your thumb's on middle C, that puts your second finger on B, working backwards, working down. It's the alphabet backwards. It puts your third finger on A. And the A is the beginning of the alphabet, so the next letter down would be the end of your musical alphabet, which is G, and then finally 5 on F. But the easiest way to remember middle C position is both thumbs on middle C. Okay, so if you look at your diagram at the top of the page, it shows us those notes on the keyboard. It shows us that the left hand takes 5 on F, 4 on G, 3 on A, 2 on B, thumb on C, and the right hand also takes thumb on C, 2 on D, 3 on E, 4 on F, 5 on G. You can also see where these notes are on the treble and bass staff. Notice middle C. Okay, even though it's the same note, they're actually in different places when you look at the entire grand staff, meaning they're not overlapping when you see them together, if that makes sense. So in other words, they've spaced out, where the middle C is on the treble clef and where middle C is on the bass clef. So you can see the separation. But those are both this key, middle C. Okay, hopefully that makes sense what I just said. You've already learned these notes in the right hand. Let's look more closely at those in the left hand. Now, if you're familiar with your G position and you memorize the notes on the staff, in the bass staff for the G position, the only new note you're learning is F, which is the second line from the top on the bass clef staff. You've already learned the G. You've already learned the A, the B, and the middle C. The only thing different is in the G position, you played them with different fingers. But if you've already learned the notes on the staff, the new one is F. And actually, now that I think about it, it's not new, because back in the original C position, you learned that F, but you were playing it with your second finger. So ultimately, actually, there's nothing new here. It's just a new hand position, new fingers on the same notes. All right, before we put the hands together, let's play them separately. So in the middle of the page, it says play and say the note names. Do this several times, starting in the bass clef with our left hand. 5 on F, fourth finger G, third finger A, 2 on B, thumb on middle C, back to B, A, G, and lastly F. So we're just making a little round here, starting on F, going up and then back down. We do the same thing in the treble clef, starting on middle C with our thumb, and then D, E, F, G, back to F, back to E, down to D, and finally middle C. Simple enough. Now, this little tune called Thumbs on C, which is more of an exercise than a song, notice it starts out in the bass clef. The entire top line is just the bass clef, and that's our left hand. The bottom line is all treble clef, which is just our right hand. Now, even though the hands are playing at separate times, you don't want to have one hand on the piano and the other hand on your lap. You want to have the other hand always on the keyboard ready to go. So by the time I get to the end of the first line and I start the second line, I can play without any interruption to the steady beat. So if my hand's up here, or both hands are up here, how do I contend with middle C? Since your left hand is playing first, have your left hand thumb on middle C. Your right hand, you can actually rest your thumb, if you can call it resting, have it situated in the air slightly above middle C. When you get to the bottom line, you're actually going to do a little switcheroo with the thumbs. So your right hand thumb will go on the key and your left hand thumb comes up in the air. So it's basically taking turns. That's very odd, but it happens sometimes in piano. It's going to be a lot easier than both thumbs on the same key. Okay, so again, we're going to start with the left hand. Have your right hand thumb in the air. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and have our right hand in position, even though we're starting with our left hand. So at the beginning, let's just look at the notes first. Starting with 5 on F, and then you go up to G, A, B. The next measure is all C's. C, C again, and then C on beats 3 and 4. Next measure, you're still on C, and then B, A, back to B, and then C, C, C. Now the right hand takes over. Now you could go ahead and switch out your thumbs now. It's probably better to do it. But make sure you hold that half note, 3, 4, and then switch. It'd be quick. The other option is wait. Let's see if it works. I'm going to start on the bottom line with the right hand. My thumb is still on the C in the left hand. So I got in the right hand G, F, E, D. Yeah, you could switch here. That might be better actually. So I recommend, instead of switching the thumbs at the end of the second line, because if you do that, you risk getting off of that half note too early. I'm going to say at the end of the first line, you keep your left hand still on middle C. Obviously release it from the key, but as you play the right hand, keep your thumb in the air. And when you get to the second measure right here, then switch them out. I think that'll be better. So let's do that. So once again, the right hand from the beginning of the bottom line is G, F, E, D, C, C, C. Next measure, C again. D, E, D, C, C, C. All right, let's take it from the very beginning. So very beginning, right hand thumbs in the air, left hand thumbs on middle C. Here we go. Let's do it with the count off. I think we can go and do it with the rhythms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now switch to your right hand thumb. So I think your biggest challenge is dealing with the thumbs here. You may have to exaggerate these motions for a while in the beginning. So what I mean by that is when your left hand's playing, if you want to keep your right hand thumb way up in the air, overdoing it, in the beginning, that's all right, just to get the motions down. When your right hand is playing at the bottom line and you switch to middle C, you can really lift that left hand out of there. But the end result is you want to be a little bit tighter so that your motions aren't really lifting the hand, but rather just kind of switching out thumbs. You see the difference here? This would be lifting my hand. And then here, whoops, I don't lift the hand, I just lift the thumb. So that's your end result. That's your goal, is just maneuvering the fingers. But like I said in the beginning, if you need to make big motions to make it work, that's obviously okay. That's basically it for thumbs on C. It's mezzo forte, average volume, moderately slow. It is repeated. It's an exercise is all it is. But the middle C position will be used in the next several lessons. So it's important to get comfortable with this, and that's the key word. Getting comfortable with our hands being close together, getting comfortable with the thumbs switching around on middle C. So once that's accomplished and you feel good about it, see you in the next lesson.